You know, when people ask me how I made my first $1 million on YouTube, they expect some complicated formula or secret hack. But the truth is, it started with me sitting in my bedroom at 2 a.m., unable to sleep, watching a video about deep-sea creatures. I wasn't thinking about money. I was just lost. This was back in 2019. I was working a job I hated, making $42,000 a year as a data analyst, staring at spreadsheets for 9 hours a day. And that night, watching that random video about the Mariana Trench, something clicked. The creator had 300,000 subscribers. I did the math in my head, even at modest ad rates, they were probably making more in a month than I made in 3. But here's the thing most people miss: I didn't quit my job the next day. In fact, I didn't quit for another 14 months. And that decision, to build slowly, to not bet everything on a dream, that's probably the most important fact in this entire story. Because desperation shows up in your content. People can feel it when you need the views, when you're trying too hard. So I started small. My first video took me 3 weeks to make. 3 weeks. It was an 8-minute video about productivity tips that got 47 views in the first month. 47. And 23 of those were probably me, checking obsessively to see if the numbers had changed. The second fact that changed everything for me was understanding that YouTube isn't actually about going viral. I know that sounds backwards, but hear me out. My channel didn't explode overnight. For the first 6 months, I averaged maybe 200 to 300 views per video. I uploaded every single Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Not because that was the optimal time, according to some algorithm guru, but because that's when I could consistently do it. And consistency, boring as it sounds, is what the algorithm actually rewards. By month 7, something shifted. One of my videos, ironically, one I almost didn't publish because I thought it was too simple, started getting traction. It was about how I organize my digital files to save time. Nothing revolutionary. But it solved a specific, annoying problem that thousands of people had. That video hit 10,000 views in its first week. Then 50,000. Then 200,000. And here's the third critical fact: I didn't try to replicate it immediately. Everyone told me to make 10 more videos just like it, to capitalize on the momentum. But I could tell from the comments that my audience was broader than just productivity nerds. They wanted calm, thoughtful content about self-improvement in general. So I expanded, slowly, testing different topics while keeping the same soothing tone and practical approach. The fourth fact is about money, and this is where most creators get it wrong. My first YouTube paycheck was $127.43 for an entire month. This was about 9 months into my channel. I had maybe 3,000 subscribers at that point. But I wasn't making videos for ad revenue, I was building an audience. Because once you have an audience that actually trusts you, that's when the real opportunities appear. I started getting sponsorship offers around the 8,000 subscriber mark. Small ones, maybe $200 for a 60-second integration. I turned down most of them. Not because I was rich, remember, I was still working that data analyst job, still living in a 1-bedroom apartment with a roommate. I turned them down because they didn't fit. And this is fact number 5, your integrity is your currency on this platform. The moment you promote something you don't believe in, your audience knows. They always know. What nobody talks about is the emotional toll of creating content in the dark. For those first 15 months, I had no idea if any of this would work. Every Saturday morning, I'd wake up at 6 a.m., make coffee, and sit down to edit videos that might get 500 views. My roommate thought I was wasting my time. My parents would ask gently when I was going to focus on my real career. And here's fact number 7. the doubt never fully goes away. Even now, even after everything, there are days when I upload a video and think, maybe this is the one where everyone realizes I have no idea what I'm doing. But I learned something crucial during those dark months: you have to separate your self-worth from your view count. The videos that I poured my heart into sometimes flopped. The ones I made on autopilot sometimes exploded. There's randomness to this that you cannot control. So I focused on what I could control. I invested $800, money I really didn't have, into a better microphone. Not a camera, notice. A microphone. Because fact number 8 is this: audio quality matters more than video quality for the type of content I was making. People will forgive okay visuals if they're learning something valuable, but bad audio makes them click away in seconds. That microphone changed everything. My audience retention jumped from an average of 38% to 51% almost immediately. Around month 17, I had a video that changed my trajectory completely. It wasn't my most viewed video ever, but it was the right video seen by the right people. I made a deep dive about passive income strategies, real ones, not the scammy, get-rich-quick stuff. That video got picked up by a personal finance YouTuber with 2 million subscribers who mentioned it in their community tab. Within 48 hours, I gained 15,000 subscribers. My channel went from 52,000 to 67,000 subscribers in 2 days. And here's fact number 9, the one that surprised me most: rapid growth is actually harder to manage than slow growth. Suddenly my comments section was full of strangers. Some were kind. Some were cruel. Some demanded I make specific content, as if I owed them something. I had to learn quickly that you cannot please everyone. The moment you try, you lose the unique voice that made people subscribe in the first place. But those new subscribers pushed me over an invisible threshold. Sponsorship offers tripled. Instead of reaching out to brands started reaching out to me. And the rates changed: instead of $500 for an integration, I was being offered $2,000, then $3,500. In month 19, I hit my goal. 3 months in a row of making over $4,500. March, $4,800. April, $5,200. May, $5,600. I walked into my manager's office on a Tuesday morning and gave my 2 weeks' notice. He asked what I was going to do. I told him I was going to make YouTube videos full-time. He looked at me like I'd said I was joining the circus. Maybe I was. Fact number 10 is about that transition, and this is critical. Quitting my job was the second scariest thing I've ever done, but it was also strategically planned. I had 6 months of expenses saved. I had consistent income for 3 months straight. I had a content calendar planned 8 weeks out. I wasn't jumping off a cliff, I was stepping onto a path I'd already built. The first month of full-time YouTube was strange. I'd imagined this freedom, this unlimited time to create. But instead, I felt paralyzed. When you have all day to make a video, you somehow make worse videos. I was overthinking everything, spending 4 days on a video that would have taken me a weekend when I had a day job. So I gave myself structure. Fact 11, treat YouTube like a real job, even when nobody's watching. I set office hours. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. I batch filmed on Mondays and Tuesdays. Edited Wednesday through Thursday. Uploaded Saturday mornings, same as always. Fridays were for admin, emails, comments, planning. This structure saved me from burning out in those early full-time months. And the content evolved. With more time, I could research deeper, tell better stories, add nuance that wasn't possible when I was editing at midnight after a full workday. My videos got longer, from 8 to 10 minutes to 15 to 20 minutes. Conventional wisdom says shorter is better, but fact 12 proved otherwise for my audience. Longer, more thoughtful content actually performed better. My audience retention stayed high because I wasn't padding for length. I was going deeper into topics people actually cared about. Within 3 months of going full-time, my monthly revenue hit $8,000. Then $11,000. Then, in my 6th full-time month, I had my first $15,000 month. That was from a combination of AdSense, which was now around $4,000 to $5,000 monthly, plus 2 good sponsorship deals, plus something new I'd started testing, digital products. And that's where the real money started coming in, but not in the way you might think. The digital product I created wasn't some elaborate course or coaching program. It was a simple 40-page PDF guide about the productivity system I used to manage my YouTube channel while working full-time. I called it the Side Hustle Operating System, and I priced it at $27. I mentioned it once, at the end of one video. Just a casual, hey, if you want the detailed breakdown of how I actually do this, I made a guide, link in the description. That video got 80,000 views. 1,200 people bought the guide. That's $32,400 in revenue from something that took me 2 weekends to create. And here's fact 13, the one that fundamentally changed how I thought about YouTube: your audience isn't just watching for entertainment or information. They're looking for transformation. They want to become something, do something, achieve something. When you can give them a tool that bridges the gap between where they are and where they want to be, they'll pay for it. Not because you're manipulating them, but because it's genuinely valuable. But I didn't want to become one of those creators whose every video is a sales pitch. So I made a rule: I'd create one piece of valuable free content for every paid product I mentioned. For every guide I sold, I'd release 10 videos with actionable information people could implement without paying me a cent. Fact 14, generosity builds trust, and trust converts better than any marketing funnel. My channel hit 100,000 subscribers on a Thursday afternoon. I was sitting in a coffee shop, editing a video about morning routines, when the notification popped up. I'd imagined this moment would feel triumphant, like crossing a finish line. Instead, it felt quiet. Grateful. Like I'd been given a gift I didn't entirely deserve. YouTube sent me a plaque. The silver play button. I hung it in my little home office, and every time I looked at it during those next few months, it reminded me, 100,000 people chose to listen to what I had to say. That's not a number. That's a responsibility. Around this time, I started getting invited to speak at conferences. Small ones at first, a $500 speaking fee to talk about content creation at a marketing summit. Then bigger ones. $2,000. $5,000. Fact 15, diversification isn't just smart business, it's survival. YouTube could change its algorithm tomorrow. Ad rates could crash. Sponsorships could dry up. But if you build a brand that exists beyond any single platform, you create stability. I was making roughly $15,000 to $20,000 per month now. This was about 8 months into full-time content creation. On paper, I was successful. But I was also exhausted. I was producing a video every single week, responding to hundreds of comments, managing sponsorship negotiations, fulfilling digital product orders, and trying to maintain some semblance of a personal life. Fact 16 came from nearly burning out: you cannot scale yourself infinitely. I hired my first contractor, a video editor who charged $200 per video. It felt terrifying to pay someone else to do work I could do myself. But it bought me back 15 hours per week. Those 15 hours let me focus on strategy, on storytelling, on the parts of creation that only I could do. The channel continued growing. 150,000 subscribers. Then 200,000. My content had found a rhythm. I focused on sustainable success rather than hustle culture, on depth rather than hacks, on honest stories rather than highlight reels. And weirdly, this slower, more thoughtful approach was growing faster than when I tried to chase trends. Around month 11 of full-time YouTube, I launched my second digital product. This time, a video course about building a personal brand without burning out. I spent 3 months creating it, filming over 40 lessons, building worksheets and templates. I priced it at $197. I was terrified nobody would buy it. It was so much more expensive than the guide. But fact 17 taught me something profound: the right people aren't price sensitive, they're value sensitive. If you solve a genuine problem for someone, if you can help them avoid years of mistakes you made, the price becomes secondary. I sold 600 copies in the first month. That's $118,200 in a single month. Combined with my regular YouTube revenue, sponsorships, and speaking fees, that month I earned $143,000. I remember sitting in my apartment, I'd moved to a one-bedroom by myself now, looking at my bank account and not quite believing the numbers. 18 months earlier, I'd been making $3,500 a month at a job I hated. Now I'd made more in 1 month than I used to make in 3 years. But here's what nobody tells you about making money like this: it doesn't feel the way you imagined. You don't suddenly feel different. You're still you, with the same doubts, the same insecurities. Fact 18 is maybe the most important: money solves money problems. It doesn't solve life problems. I was more financially secure, yes, but I was also more isolated, more uncertain about who to trust, more aware of how quickly it could all disappear. And then something happened that forced me to completely rethink everything I was building. 3 months after that massive launch, my channel growth stalled. Not dramatically, I was still gaining subscribers, still getting views, but the momentum had plateaued. I was hovering around 250,000 subscribers, and every video was getting roughly the same performance. 40,000 to 60,000 views, decent engagement, but nothing was breaking through anymore. I panicked. I started second-guessing everything. Was my content getting stale? Was the algorithm punishing me? Had I reached my ceiling? I did what every creator does when they're scared: I looked at what was working for other people and tried to replicate it. Fact 19: chasing other people's success is the fastest way to lose your own voice. I made 3 videos trying to copy trending formats: faster pacing, flashier thumbnails, clickbaitier titles. They performed worse than my regular content. And more importantly, I hated making them. I could feel myself becoming a different creator, one I didn't respect. So I went back to basics. I asked my audience directly, what do you actually want from this channel? I made a community post, simple question. The responses surprised me. People weren't asking for more content, faster uploads, or trending topics. They wanted deeper dives. Longer videos. More personal stories. They wanted me to slow down, not speed up. Fact 20 changed my entire strategy: your audience knows what they need better than you do, but only if you actually listen. I started making 30 to 40-minute videos. Deep, researched explorations of topics like building wealth slowly, recovering from failure, finding purpose without productivity. These videos took twice as long to make. I went from uploading weekly to every other week. My fellow creators told me I was committing career suicide. The algorithm favors consistency, they said. You can't take weeks off. You'll lose momentum. But within a month of this shift, something unexpected happened. My average view duration doubled. Videos that used to keep people for 8 minutes were now keeping them for 20. And the algorithm noticed. One of those longer videos, a 38-minute piece about my journey from burnout to balance, got recommended broadly. It hit 500,000 views in the first week. Then 1 million. Then 2 million. It became my most viewed video, and it happened because I stopped trying to game the system and started creating what actually mattered. My subscriber count jumped from 250,000 to 400,000 in about 6 weeks. And these weren't passive subscribers, these were engaged people who watched entire videos, left thoughtful comments, shared content with friends. Fact 21: 10,000 truly engaged followers is worth more than 100,000 casual ones. quality of audience matters infinitely more than quantity. The sponsorship landscape changed too. Brands were now offering $8,000 to $12,000 per video integration. I was selective, maybe one sponsor every 3 videos. But even being selective, I was making $25,000 to $35,000 per month from YouTube ad revenue and sponsorships alone, not counting digital products or speaking fees. Around this time, I made a decision that felt risky. I hired a small team. Not just a contractor here and there, but actual team members. A full-time editor at $4,000 a month. A part-time researcher at $2,000 a month. A virtual assistant to handle emails and admin at $1,500 a month. That's $7,500 in monthly overhead. Fact 22, investing in the right people doesn't cost you money, it makes you money. With my time freed up, I could focus on high-leverage activities, creating better content, developing new products, building strategic partnerships. Within 2 months of hiring my team, my monthly revenue increased by $40,000. Not despite the expense, but because of it. I also started investing in my craft differently. I took a storytelling course from a documentary filmmaker. I hired a speaking coach to improve my on-camera presence. I spent $3,000 on lighting equipment to make my videos feel more cinematic. These weren't frivolous expenses, they were investments in becoming undeniably good. Fact 23, in a saturated market, remarkable quality is your only sustainable advantage. There are millions of YouTube channels. Thousands in every niche. The ones that break through aren't always the ones with the best SEO or the catchiest thumbnails. They're the ones that are so good, people can't help but share them. My channel crossed 500,000 subscribers about 2 years after I'd started. At this point, I sat down and did something I should have done earlier. I calculated my total earnings. From the very first $127 paycheck to now. YouTube ad revenue, sponsorships, digital products, speaking fees, consultation calls, everything. The number was $847,000. I was close. So close. But fact 24 is crucial. The last stretch isn't about doing more, it's about doing better. I didn't need another viral video. I needed sustainable systems that would keep working whether I had a good month or a bad month. So I created my third digital product, a membership community. Not a course that people buy once, but an ongoing space where people could get monthly workshops, group coaching calls, and a community of like-minded people building sustainable success. I priced it at $49 per month. I soft-launched it to my email list of 35,000 people. 800 people joined in the first week. That's $39,200 in monthly recurring revenue. And unlike a course launch that's here and gone, this was income that would continue month after month, as long as I delivered value. Month 26 of my YouTube journey. That's when the number finally clicked over. It happened on a Tuesday morning in March. I was making breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, nothing fancy, when I got a notification from Stripe. A payment had processed for a bulk order of my course. Some company had bought licenses for their entire team. $4,730. I opened my spreadsheet, the one where I tracked everything. Every dollar that had come in from YouTube over the past 2 years and 2 months. I added that payment. The total read, $1,003,847. I sat there in my kitchen, toast getting cold, just staring at the number. $1 million. Not in my bank account all at once, taxes, expenses, and reinvestment had taken their share. But $1 million that I'd earned by making videos in my bedroom, sharing what I'd learned, trying to help people build better lives. Fact 25, hitting a milestone doesn't feel like you think it will. There was no euphoria, no champagne moment. Just a quiet sense of gratitude, and honestly, a little bit of fear. Fear that I'd gotten lucky. Fear that it wouldn't last. Fear that I didn't deserve it. But here's what I realized in that moment: the $1 million wasn't the achievement. The achievement was building something that generated the $1 million. The systems, the audience trust, the content quality, the diversified revenue streams. The money was just evidence of value created. I didn't tell anyone for a week. Not my family, not my friends, not my audience. I just sat with it, processed it, tried to understand what it meant. Because fact 26 is this: once you achieve a goal you've been chasing for years, you have to decide who you're going to be on the other side of it. I could have coasted. Scaled back. Protected what I'd built. But the truth was, I wasn't tired. I was just getting started. Because making $1 million taught me something unexpected: the game isn't about the money. It's about the impact. Let me show you what I mean. After hitting that milestone, I looked at my metrics differently. I had generated over 50 million minutes of watch time on my channel. That's 95 years of human attention. 95 years that people chose to spend with me, learning, reflecting, hopefully improving their lives in some small way. I read through comments, thousands of them. People who'd quit soul-crushing jobs. People who'd started their own channels. People who'd restructured their finances, their schedules, their entire approach to life because something I said resonated. That's the actual wealth YouTube gave me. The money was secondary. So I made a decision. Fact 27: the best way to protect your success is to share it. I started being radically transparent about my journey. I made a video breaking down exactly how I made my money, the revenue percentages from different sources, the mistakes I made, the strategies that worked. I was nervous people would see me as bragging or think I was out of touch. The opposite happened. That video became one of my most viewed ever, 3.2 million views. The comments were overwhelming. People weren't jealous or resentful. They were inspired. They appreciated the honesty. And my subscriber count jumped from 500,000 to 700,000 in 6 weeks. Fact 28: people don't resent success when you share the roadmap. They resent success when you pretend it was easy or inevitable or that you did it alone. I showed the spreadsheets, the failures, the videos that flopped, the sponsorships I lost because I pushed back on their messaging. I showed the full picture. And that transparency created a deeper level of trust. My membership community grew from 800 members to 1,400 members. That's $68,600 in monthly recurring revenue. My email list grew to 65,000 people. Brand partnerships became actual partnerships. Companies wanted to work with me long-term because they saw I had genuine influence, not just reach. Around month 28, I hit a different kind of milestone. I had a $100,000 month. Not from one big launch, but from the compound effect of multiple revenue streams all working together. YouTube ads brought in $18,000. Sponsorships brought in $25,000. My membership community brought in $68,600. Digital product sales brought in $12,000. Speaking fees brought in $8,000. Consultation calls brought in $4,500. That's when fact 29 became crystal clear: diversification isn't just about stability, it's about freedom. If YouTube disappeared tomorrow, I'd still have a business. If brands stopped sponsoring, I'd be fine. No single revenue source controlled my livelihood, which meant no single entity controlled my voice. I started seeing opportunities differently. Another YouTuber with 2 million subscribers reached out about collaborating. Old me would have said yes immediately: the exposure, the credibility. But I looked at their content. It was good, but it wasn't aligned with my values. They optimized for views over value. So I politely declined. Fact 30: once you're financially secure, you can finally make decisions based on integrity rather than necessity. That's the real freedom money buys. Not fancy cars or big houses, but the ability to say no to things that don't serve you or your audience. My channel crossed 800,000 subscribers. Then 900,000. I was averaging $85,000 to $120,000 per month now, depending on launches and sponsorships. My total earnings crossed $1.5 million. Then $1.8 million. The numbers were surreal, but they'd also become less important. What mattered more was the community I'd built. The annual meetup I organized where 200 members of my audience came together. The small creators I was now mentoring, trying to help them avoid the mistakes I'd made. The scholarship fund I'd started to help people access courses they couldn't otherwise afford. But success also brought challenges I never anticipated. Challenges that tested everything I thought I knew about this business. The challenges started subtly. First, it was the comments. As my channel grew beyond 1 million subscribers, the tone shifted. For every 100 supportive comments, there were a few that cut deep. People accusing me of selling out. Questioning my authenticity. Picking apart every word, every decision, every video with a level of scrutiny I wasn't prepared for. Fact 31, visibility comes with vulnerability. When you're small, people root for you. When you're successful, some people want to see you fail. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your success makes them confront their own fears and inaction. I had to learn that their criticism was rarely about me, it was about them. I started working with a therapist. This surprised people when I mentioned it in a video, but fact 32 is something I wish someone had told me earlier. Success is a psychological challenge, not just a strategic one. I was dealing with imposter syndrome at a massive scale. Every time I hit a new milestone, a voice in my head whispered, fraud. Every time I charged money for something, I felt guilty. Every time someone praised my work, I deflected. My therapist helped me understand that I was carrying a scarcity mindset into an abundant reality. I was still operating as if everything could disappear tomorrow, as if I hadn't earned what I'd built. That fear was driving me to work 60-hour weeks when I didn't need to say yes to opportunities one should have declined, to optimize every decision for more money when I already had enough. So I made a radical change. I took a month off. Completely off. No videos, no emails, no content. I told my audience in advance, explained I needed to reset, and I disappeared. My team kept the membership community running, but I was gone. Fact 33, rest is not the opposite of productivity, it's the foundation of it. That month off gave me clarity I hadn't had in years. I came back with a completely different approach. I decided I'd only make videos about things I genuinely cared about. Only accept sponsorships from brands I'd recommend to a friend. Only create products that solved problems I wished someone had solved for me. This meant saying no a lot. I turned down a $50,000 sponsorship because the product was overpriced and I couldn't honestly recommend it. I turned down speaking engagements that paid $15,000 because they wanted me to deliver a rah-rah motivational speech instead of honest insights. I turned down collaboration opportunities with massive channels because our values didn't align. Each no felt terrifying in the moment. But fact 34 proved itself over and over. Every no to the wrong thing is a yes to the right thing. And the right things always pay better in the long run, even if they don't seem to in the moment. My content evolved again. I started making videos that were even longer, 45 minutes, an hour, sometimes 90 minutes. Deep conversations with other creators, detailed case studies of my failures, philosophical explorations of what success actually means. Videos that couldn't be skimmed or consumed passively. The algorithm hated them at first. My views per video dropped by 30%. But watch time increased by 60%. And something else happened, the quality of my audience deepened even further. The people who stayed were deeply committed. They weren't casual viewers. They were people genuinely invested in their own growth. And that audience quality translated to business results. My membership community grew to 2,100 members. That's $102,900 per month in recurring revenue. Think about that, over $100,000 monthly, just from people paying $49 to be part of a community. Not from ads. Not from sponsors. From genuine value exchange. Fact 35. Build a business model where your incentives align with your audience's best interests. I made more money when my members got better results, because they stayed longer and told their friends. I didn't need to trick anyone or use manipulative tactics. The business model itself was ethical. Around month 34, I made another major decision. I started a podcast. Not because podcasts were trending, but because I wanted deeper conversations than YouTube thumbnails and titles allowed. I wanted to talk to people for 2 hours, not 20 minutes. I wanted nuance, not sound bites. The podcast started small. Maybe 5,000 downloads per episode. But it served a different purpose. Fact 36. Not everything needs to be optimized for maximum reach. Some things can exist just to deepen relationships with the people who are already paying attention. The podcast became a way for my most engaged audience members to go even deeper. And surprisingly, it became another revenue stream. Within 6 months, I was making $8,000 to $12,000 per month from podcast sponsorships. Not massive money compared to YouTube, but another thread in the diversified tapestry. My team grew too. I now had 3 full-time employees and 2 part-time contractors. A senior video editor making $75,000 per year. A content strategist at $65,000. A community manager at $55,000. Plus my researcher and assistant. That's over $20,000 per month in payroll, not counting taxes and benefits. Old me would have panicked at those numbers. But fact 37, the right team doesn't cost you money, it multiplies your impact and income. My revenue had grown to consistently over $150,000 per month. Even after payroll, expenses, and taxes, I was personally taking home more than I ever had, while working fewer hours than when I was a one-person operation. I also started investing seriously. Not just keeping money in a bank account, but building actual wealth. Index funds, real estate, even a small stake in a startup founded by someone in my community. Fact 38, making money is one skill, keeping and growing money is another. I worked with a financial advisor to create a plan that would ensure I never had to worry about money again, even if YouTube disappeared tomorrow. By month 36, exactly 3 years after starting my channel, my total lifetime earnings crossed $3 million. $3 million from talking into a camera in my home office. But more importantly, I'd built something sustainable. Something that wasn't dependent on virality or luck or algorithm changes. And that's when I realized the final truth about this entire journey. The final truth hit me during a conversation with a new creator who'd reached out for advice. They asked me the question everyone asks, what's the secret? How do I replicate what you did? And I realized, there is no replicable formula. Not really. Because fact 39 is uncomfortable but true, timing, luck, and circumstance play a bigger role than anyone wants to admit. I started my channel at a specific moment when the personal development space was shifting. When people were tired of hustle culture. When the algorithm favored longer content. When sponsorship budgets were growing. 6 months earlier or later, and my trajectory might have been completely different. But that doesn't mean the work didn't matter. It means the work had to meet the moment. I couldn't have controlled the timing, but I could control showing up consistently, improving constantly, and building genuine relationships with my audience. Fact 40, you can't control outcomes, but you can control the quality of your inputs. And over a long enough timeline, quality inputs create lucky breaks. I started thinking about legacy differently. I'd made my $1 million. I'd actually made $3 million. I had financial security beyond anything I'd imagined. So what was I building for now? That question kept me up at night. I decided to use my platform differently. I started highlighting other creators, people doing interesting work who deserved more attention. I'd make videos showcasing their channels, their approaches, their unique perspectives. I didn't ask for anything in return. I just wanted to use my reach to lift others. Fact 41: Generosity creates compound returns in ways you can't predict. 3 creators I featured early on went on to build massive channels. They've sent me countless referrals, collaboration opportunities, and friendship. One of them introduced me to a literary agent. Now I have a book deal worth $200,000. That never would have happened if I'd been protective of my audience or my spotlight. The book was another interesting evolution. Writing it forced me to synthesize everything I'd learned over 4 years of creating content. It wasn't about YouTube tactics or growth hacks. It was about sustainable success, about building things that matter, about the psychology of achievement and fulfillment. Fact 42: Every platform you build on gives you permission to build on another platform. My YouTube audience became book pre-orders. My email list became launch partners. My membership community became early readers who gave feedback. Nothing existed in isolation. Everything reinforced everything else. Around month 40, I looked at my business metrics with fresh eyes. My YouTube channel had 1.4 million subscribers. My membership community had 2,600 members, that's $127,400 in monthly recurring revenue. My email list had grown to 95,000 people. My podcast was getting 40,000 downloads per episode. I was averaging $180,000 per month across all revenue streams. But the numbers that meant more: I'd helped 47 people quit jobs they hated and start their own creative businesses. I'd given away $120,000 in scholarships to my courses. I'd mentored 15 new creators who were now making full-time income from their channels. That impact felt more real than any dollar amount. I also noticed something about my relationship with money. It had stopped being the primary motivator. Fact 43: Once you have enough, more money doesn't change your life, it just changes your bank account. I was already doing work I loved, living in a comfortable home, traveling when I wanted to, supporting causes I cared about. Making $200,000 per month instead of $180,000 didn't actually improve my day-to-day existence. So I started experimenting with different business models. I created a "Pay What You Want" course where people could access everything for free if they couldn't afford it, or pay $500 if they wanted to support the work. Over 3,000 people took it for free. 200 people paid the full price. Total revenue, $100,000. The free users left reviews, shared it with friends, and many eventually joined my membership community. Fact 44: Abundance thinking creates abundance. Scarcity thinking creates scarcity. I also started saying no to almost all sponsorships. Not because I was above them, but because I didn't need them anymore. My membership revenue alone was enough to run my business and pay myself well. So I only accepted maybe 1 or 2 sponsorships per year, products I genuinely loved and would have promoted anyway. This created an unexpected effect. My audience trusted me more than ever. They knew that when I recommended something, it was because I truly believed in it, not because someone paid me. And ironically, brands wanted to work with me more because of this selectivity. I could now command $50,000 for a single integration because the authenticity was worth more than frequency. Fact 45 became obvious in retrospect: the less you need something, the more valuable you become. When I was desperate for sponsorships, I had to accept low rates and strict terms. Now that I could walk away, I had all the leverage. My content continued evolving. I made a video that was 3 hours long, essentially a documentary about building a one-person business. It took me 2 months to produce. Everyone said it was too long, that nobody would watch it. It's been viewed 4.2 million times. Average view duration, 87 minutes. People watched for over an hour on average. That video alone generated $45,000 in AdSense revenue and led to 800 new membership signups. It proved fact 46, you don't need to compromise quality for reach. Sometimes the most uncommercial decision is the most commercial decision. By month 45, my total lifetime earnings crossed $5 million. $5 million from YouTube and related ventures. But I was working maybe 25 hours per week. I had time to read, to think, to have lunch with friends, to take 3-week vacations without checking email. I had built what I'd wanted all along, not just financial freedom, but time freedom. Gentle, reflective pause. And sitting here now, looking back at the whole journey, I can finally see what it was really all about. Looking back, I can see the journey was never really about the $1 million. It was about becoming the kind of person who could create $1 million worth of value. That distinction matters more than I understood at the beginning. Fact 47, every external achievement requires an internal transformation. The person who uploaded that first video that got 47 views couldn't have built what I have now. Not because they lacked skills, though they did, but because they lacked the confidence, the resilience, the perspective that only comes from years of showing up and failing and trying again. I failed more than I've mentioned. There were 3 digital products I created that completely flopped, hundreds of hours of work that generated maybe $3,000 total. There were videos I spent weeks on that got a fraction of the views I expected. There were sponsorships I accepted early on that damaged my credibility and took months to recover from. There were team members I hired who weren't the right fit, and letting them go was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Fact 48, failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the entry price. Every successful creator, entrepreneur, or artist you admire has a graveyard of failed projects behind them. The difference is they kept creating anyway. They didn't let failure define them or stop them. They extracted the lesson and moved forward. One of my biggest failures taught me my most valuable lesson. About 2 years in, I launched a high-ticket coaching program, $5,000 for 6 months of group coaching. I sold 30 spots. That's $150,000 in revenue. But I hadn't thought through the time commitment. I was spending 20 hours per week on coaching calls, leaving barely any time for content creation. My YouTube growth stalled. My energy plummeted. I was miserable. I finished the 6 months because I'd made a commitment. But I never offered it again. Fact 49, just because you can make money doing something doesn't mean you should. Some revenue isn't worth the cost to your well-being, your creative energy, or your long-term vision. I learned to evaluate opportunities not just by their financial return, but by their impact on my quality of life. That experience led me to create better boundaries. I stopped responding to every email personally. I stopped doing free consultation calls. I stopped trying to help everyone who reached out. It felt selfish at first, but fact 50, you can't pour from an empty cup. By protecting my time and energy, I could create better content that helped more people than one-on-one interactions ever could. My relationship with my audience matured too. In the beginning, I needed their validation. Every comment, every like, every subscriber felt like proof that I mattered. But over time, I realized that was an exhausting way to live. Now I create for an audience of one, the person I was 3 years ago, sitting in that bedroom at 2 a.m., wondering if there was a different way to live. If that person finds value in what I make, then I've succeeded, regardless of views or revenue. Fact 51. When you create from a place of service rather than need, the work becomes better and the pressure becomes lighter. Paradoxically, this mindset has led to my best performing content. I also stopped comparing myself to other creators. There will always be someone growing faster, making more money, getting more opportunities. For a while, that ate at me. I'd see a creator with fewer subscribers getting brand deals I wanted, or someone with less experience launching a successful product, and I'd spiral into jealousy and self-doubt. But Fact 52 changed everything. Comparison is only useful if it inspires action, otherwise it's just self-torture. I started using other creators' success as data points. What are they doing well that I could learn from? Rather than as evidence of my inadequacy. That shift freed up so much mental energy. Around month 48, 4 years into this journey, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a CEO for my business. Not to replace me, but to handle operations, team management, and strategic planning. This freed me up to focus purely on creating videos, courses, the book, whatever inspired me. It was terrifying to hand over that much control. But Fact 53, if you want to scale impact, you have to be willing to delegate authority, not just tasks. My revenue didn't just maintain after hiring a CEO, it grew by 40% in 6 months because someone with actual business expertise was making strategic decisions while I focused on what only I could do. My monthly income was now consistently over $200,000. My team had grown to 7 people. My business had structure, systems, processes. It had evolved from guy making videos in his bedroom to an actual media company. We had a company retreat. We had health benefits. We had a mission statement. And yet, I still filmed videos in that same home office. Still wrote my own scripts. Still responded to comments from my audience, at least the ones that sparked something in me. Because Fact 54, no matter how big the business gets, authenticity has to remain at the core. The moment I outsourced my voice or let someone else write my words, I'd lose the thing that made any of this possible, genuine connection. I started thinking about what's next. The book would come out next year. Maybe a speaking tour. Maybe investing in other creators' businesses. Maybe starting a fund to support diverse voices in the creator economy. Maybe nothing, maybe just continuing to make videos and serve my community. Fact 55. The beautiful thing about financial freedom is you don't have to have it all figured out. You can explore. You can experiment. You can say yes to things that excite you and no to things that don't, without worrying about paying rent. I looked at my lifetime earnings recently. They'd crossed $7 million. $7 million from creating content that helped people build better lives. But the number didn't hit the same way the first million did. Because by now I understood Fact 56, money is just a tool, not a destination. It's what enables you to do meaningful work, support people you love, and create positive change. But it's not the point. So if someone asked me today, how did you make $1 million on YouTube, I'd tell them the truth. The truth is simpler and more complex than any formula could capture. I made $1 million by showing up every week for years, even when nobody was watching. By getting better at my craft 1% at a time. By building trust with an audience that became a community. By staying curious instead of thinking I had it all figured out. By being willing to fail publicly and learn from those failures. But more than anything, I made $1 million by deciding that I was worth betting on. That sounds like self-help fluff, but Fact 57 is the foundation everything else is built on. You can't build sustainable success if you don't believe you deserve it. I had to work through years of feeling like a fraud, like I was getting away with something, like eventually everyone would see I wasn't special. The turning point came when I stopped trying to be special. When I accepted that I was just someone who'd learned some things, made some mistakes, and wanted to share what I'd discovered with others who might benefit. That humility, ironically, is what made the work resonate. I think about the people in my membership community now, 3,100 members, which is $151,900 per month in recurring revenue. But more than that number, I think about Maria, who sent me a message last month. She'd been in the community for 2 years. She started her own channel, grew it to 80,000 subscribers, and just quit her corporate job. She told me that watching my journey gave her permission to try. Fact 58, your success gives other people permission to pursue theirs. That ripple effect is worth more than any amount of money. I'm not just building a business, I'm participating in a movement of people choosing to create the lives they actually want rather than accepting the lives they were handed. My channel crossed 2 million subscribers around month 50. The notification came through while I was on vacation in Portugal with my partner, someone I'd met through the creator community, someone who understood this strange life of building in public. We celebrated with wine on a rooftop, watching the sunset over Lisbon. And I remember thinking, this is what it was all for. Not the number. Not the milestone. But the fact that I could be present in that moment, fully there, not checking analytics or worrying about the next upload or stressing about money. I had built a life where I could be present. Fact 59, presence is the ultimate luxury, and it only becomes possible when you've built systems that don't require your constant attention. My business could run for a month without me. My team knew what to do. My content calendar was planned. My revenue was diversified and stable. I had finally built the freedom I'd been chasing. But freedom brought its own questions. What do you do when you've achieved everything you set out to achieve? When the goals that drove you for years have been accomplished? I went through a period of aimlessness around month 52. I had everything I'd wanted, money, time, impact, recognition, and I felt empty. My therapist helped me understand this was normal. Fact 60, achievement creates a vacuum that needs to be filled with new meaning. The chase had given me purpose. Now I needed to find purpose beyond the chase. I spent 3 months really thinking about what mattered to me beyond metrics and milestones. I realized what I wanted was depth, not breadth. I didn't want a bigger audience, 2 million people was already more than I could meaningfully connect with. I didn't need more money, I had more than I could spend responsibly. What I wanted was to create work that would matter in 10 years, not just get views today. So I started my most ambitious project yet, a documentary series about the creator economy. Not surface-level interviews, but deep investigations into what this new way of working means for society, for mental health, for the future of employment. I invested $150,000 of my own money into production. No guarantee it would make money. No guarantee anyone would watch. But fact 61, once you have financial security, you can take creative risks that aren't possible when you're building. You can make art instead of just content. You can follow curiosity instead of algorithm optimization. You can create for legacy instead of for revenue. The first episode of that documentary series took 4 months to produce. It was 90 minutes long. It featured interviews with 30 creators, economists, psychologists, and cultural critics. I poured everything I'd learned about storytelling into it. When I uploaded it, I had no idea how it would perform. It got 8 million views in the first month. It was covered by major media outlets. Film festivals reached out. Production companies wanted to turn it into a full series. And more importantly, it sparked conversations. Schools started using it in entrepreneurship classes. Creators said it helped them understand their own journeys. Parents said it helped them understand their creator kids. That project made me realize fact 62, the work you're most afraid to share is often the work that matters most. I was terrified that documentary was too ambitious, too serious, too different from my usual content. But it was the most meaningful thing I'd created. My total lifetime earnings crossed $8.5 million around month 54. But I was spending money differently now. I'd bought a modest home, nothing extravagant, just a place that felt like mine. I was investing heavily in other creators' businesses, trying to help them avoid the mistakes I'd made. I'd started a scholarship fund for aspiring creators from underrepresented backgrounds. Fact 63: the best use of wealth is creating opportunities for others that you wish you'd had. I grew up without much money. I knew what it felt like to have big dreams and no resources. Now I could be the person I needed when I was starting out. I also started speaking more openly about the downsides of this career. The isolation of working from home. The constant pressure to perform. The parasocial relationships that feel meaningful but aren't quite real. The algorithm anxiety. The comment section trauma. The imposter syndrome that never fully goes away. Fact 64: honesty about the costs of success is just as important as celebrating the wins. Young creators needed to know what they were signing up for. This life is incredible in many ways, but it's also harder than it looks from the outside. And now, sitting here 5 years after uploading that first video, I can finally see the complete picture of what this journey actually was.